Good morning and welcome to getting your gradebook ready for the school year. So again, this is going to be a small group. Um, we're going to just look at some of the settings in gradebook and kind of going through and just talking about some of the features in Gradebook that we might forget about. So, with this being such a small group, if you guys have any questions, feel free to unmute or stop me with any of your questions or type them in the chat. I will try to pay attention to the chat so I can answer those questions. I know looking at some of the names, I know some of you guys have been teachers for years. Some of you are back into the classroom. So, again, make sure that you're asking the questions that will benefit you. Okay, so let's get started. You guys should be looking at my screen. If somebody can just give me a thumbs up, make sure you guys can see the progress book screen. So thank you. A little bit has changed over the summer. So when you first logged in today, and I'm hoping all of you have your class lists in there. You might not if your district has not finalized, which is fine. You can still follow along. But the new look for Gradebook for this year is this new side navigation. So, with you being just a teacher, the side navigation really can be minimized. We're really not using the online learning system through Gradebook. Virtual classroom. So that is what the online learning is. And then your gradebook is your home screen or what we're looking at right now, the teacher homepage. Depending on the size of your screen, this side navigation does take up some room. So if you see the little arrow, you can minimize it. Just remember that the book is your home screen, so it doesn't look like a house like most home screen buttons look like. It is the book, so it'll take you back to your grade book or your teacher homepage. So starting off, we are just going to look at our classes. So like I said, I know some of you have been in the classroom for years. Some of you might be new to, having your own grade book. When classes come in, they come in alphabetically. So that's typically not how we teach. In middle school, high school level, we teach, periods, or we might have some first semester, second semester. So we want to make sure that we are organizing these classes in a way that are going to be meaningful to you. So if I look right here where it says edit class, this allows me to go into my class list where I can give the alias for each of my classes and or in order. So if I want to have them in a specific order. So for example, if this is my first period class, I'm going to say this is period 1 and this is my second period class, period 2. I want to get those in a specific order. So, depending on what you teach, for example, high school math, we could have, algebra, we can have geometry, calculus, things like that. So, you might want to include a little bit more details with your period, but you don't have to. Again, these class alias are personal to you, so you can see them arranged in your grade book. Also, don't always look at the section numbers. So you can see each of these has section numbers. That doesn't necessarily mean that that is the period that you will be teaching that. So make sure that you are looking at the class and know exactly what period that section is for. And if you hover over any of your classes, you will see that it will give you a partial roster of the class. So you can kind of see, oh, yeah, that was my first period class to make sure that you get it named. Now, what I am going to suggest is if you are teaching semester classes, eventually you will come back in here and you can hide second semester. You don't want to do that until all your preferences are set and saved. Then you can come back and hide those classes. If you hide them right now and we go into our preferences to try to set things, those classes will not be available. So you would have to go in and remember at semester time to set those preferences. So again, if you don't hide them right now, and then, after we're done with today's training, you can go back and hide them. So if I click on save, you'll see that it's going to save my period 1, period 2. But when I click back on my book to go back to the home page, you're going to see it keeps it in the same order. It doesn't matter what I have as the alias, it's still going to alphabetize them by the course name. So, what is actually in student information. So, if I want to put them in a specific order, I'm going to give them a number. So, and when I'm going to give them a number, I don't suggest just doing a 1 and then a 2. Do count by twos, count by fives or something, because if you make a mistake in the order that you are counting, you don't want to have to redo all of your classes. So if you skipped one or you noticed you had a semester class and you forgot the second semester one, you can always, it could be a 6 instead of, renaming all of them. So for example, I'm just going to go 5 and then 10 and then hit save. You'll notice that when I save, it will order everything first alphabetically by the course name. Then it is going to go by my number order. So it'll do blanks first alphabetically and then my order number. So now it's saved. When I go back to my home screen, you can see those are at the bottom of my list. So if you want everything in a specific order, everything needs to have numbers. Okay. If not, your blanks are going to be first. And then again, it will order chronologically. Okay. So that's kind of setting up your classes, looking at them and getting them in the order that you want. Next, we're going to come over here to our administration side. So a lot of these things we only do at the beginning of the school year. So when we're looking at this, the first thing that we're going to look at is our teacher preferences. So again, you're not going to be setting this all the time. Once we set this, it's going to be set for the remainder of the school year, and it's typically done once a year. And that's why I said don't hide your classes yet, because we want to get these set. So if I click on this, there's really one thing that I want you to focus on here, and that is the postmarks to web. Most of us now, and everybody's mostly middle school, high school. So when we're looking at this, we want to make sure those assignments get posted to the web. So instead of having to click each and every assignment, if I set this here and hit save, it will have that checked for every single one. Now, if there's something that I did not want posted, maybe I'm excluding something, you can do that individually within that assignment. So once I click on that, I'm going to hit save. Then I can copy it to all of my other classes. So I can hit select all, or I can click on the ones that is needed and then hit copy. And then that setting is going to apply to all of them. And again, that's why I said do not hide any semester classes yet, because you want to get these copied over. The next thing you don't necessarily have to check, but I want to talk about it, and I'm going to show you what these two do. These were newer features last year, I believe, the mark entry page option. So this is when you're putting in your assignments. There are two options available. So if we check this for our default now, that means that it is automatically going to be on. If you don't check it from the preference page, you can turn it on and off per assignment. So I'm not going to turn it on, but I want to show you what each of these, what it looks like on the teacher side. So the show due date attendance and then comment autocomplete. I am going to go into a class and into a specific assignment. So when I am looking at my assignments, I have this little gear or my settings, and notice that my little check mark is there because I set my preferences to on. When I have my little gear here, I have those two options within it. So I can turn them on and off for each assignment. I can turn it on in my preferences so it's on for every assignment. So especially for our middle school and especially high school, because we know those kids, sometimes they miss your class. They're, on a field trip, they're doing something for the school, they're going on a college visit, maybe they're testing, whatever it might be. We need to know if they were absent from school that day. So that is where the due date attendance comes in. So when I turn this on, I'm going to hit save. You'll see that an extra column is populated. So it is pulling the due date from the assignment. So you can see that right here as September 1st. And when I'm creating my assignment, that would be this date over here, not the assigned date, but the due date. So it's looking at the due date and it will flag if that student was absent that day. So, if they're on a college visit, if, field trip, whatever it might be, it's going to show that. So if this is a test, hey, they were absent, they need to make it up. So I do know a lot of teachers at the high school level do like that because just trying to track, why a student missed a test or an assignment and so forth. So the other option is something called your comments autocomplete. Okay, so before I turn that on, we can sit here and type in comments. So I can say, good job. And then maybe this student, I want to say good job as well. So you can see I just have to type it in each and every time. But maybe my students who have low marks, I'm going to allow them the option to retake the test. So I don't want to keep typing that over and over again. So if I come in here and I turn on my comment autocomplete, I'm going to hit save. Think of it as a comment bank. Okay, so and you'll see right here, it does call it a comment bank. So if I'm allowing any of my students to retake the test if they got a 15 or lower, I'm going to type in option to retake. So instead of having to type it in over and over, what I'm going to do is click on this. It's supposed to be a little bank symbol. So if I click on that, it stores it. Oop, sorry, wrong spot. This bank. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to store it. Now when I look at this, you can see here is my option to retake. Okay, so it's showing me what I have stored in there. So now when I come to the next student who has a 15 or less, as I start typing in option to retake, you can see that it auto-populates that comment. And then I can just hit enter, go to the next student, and start typing it again. It is case sensitive, so do be careful. So if I start typing with an O, it will pop up, but that's not the one that's stored in here. The one that is stored is with the capital O. Okay, so it won't automatically correct the capital letters, but even though that's the one that's stored in there. Okay. And then if you have something, maybe you saved it incorrectly, anything like that, if you click on your assignment comment bank, you can remove it at any time. Okay. So again, you can turn that on per assignment by coming here and saving that, or on your preferences from your setup teacher preferences, you can turn those on here and save them. Okay. Okay, next. So as we are working at things, you're getting things set up at the beginning of the school year. For those of you that are working with an intervention specialist, you might want to share your gradebook with them. So that is listed under your administration, and that is set up gradebook access. So what that does, if I have a co-teacher in my room, if I click on this, it's going to ask, okay, well, who is going to be teaching? So I'm going to say add a teacher to my gradebook, and then I can search for the teacher. I'm going to add, and I'm going to say update. And you'll see that it'll bring that teacher in from the date that you selected it. So it's picking today's date and it gives it 1 year. If that teacher needs access to multiple classes, you can select the multiple classes and hit copy. Okay. Just remember that when you give a teacher access, that you give them access to all the students in your class, not just the special ed students. Okay. And the primary teacher or the teacher of record has to do this. So you can request, if you are an IS and you want access to that teacher's grade book, you can request that they share it with you. And I say share, but when they when you look at it on the dashboard, it says it's called Setup Gradebook Access. And that's the same thing as sharing. At the beginning of each school year, you have to set up your assignment types. So they will carry over from the previous year, but they will be deselected. So if I click on assignment types, you'll see your assignments types will be listed. They should still have the mark type that you used in the past. So a majority of middle school, high school use point system. And then you would check each of the classes that it applies to. And if it goes to all the classes, you can click on all and then hit save and it'll check everything for you. If there is something that you are not going to use this year, for example, maybe I'm not going to have a separate category for extra credit, I can click on it and I can delete it. You can see here I have some that are grayed out. That means that that assignment type is being used by one assignment in my gradebook. So it doesn't allow you to delete it if it's already in use. And of course, we're just now getting this set up, so yours wouldn't be in use quite yet. Once you have your assignment types created, then you can come back and set up your calc methods and weights. So this is if you are weighting by a certain assignment type. So I know some schools do formative and summative assessments. Some have their certain areas where they are assessing, but this is where you would weight it. So if classwork is, 25, homework is 25, and tests are worth 50. Needs to add up to 100. Make sure, and I always forget to do this first, make sure you change to weighted average, and you can see how it wiped it out. And then my tests are worth 50. Once I hit save, it will do the calculations for you. So you can see it automatically recalculates. Okay. So if I have these extra assignment types, but there are no weights in there, it will not calculate those assignments with those assignment types towards the final grade. Okay, so for example, extra credit, I can give 1,000 points of extra credit, but that student does necessarily won't get an A because it's not counting towards anything. So just be aware of that. If you are going to use weighted averages, they all need to have some type of weight. And then again, you can copy it to all of your classes. If you have semester classes, this is where they will populate. Get it copied to the semester class before you hide. Okay, and then the last thing, if I am in a specific class or I could be from my home screen, set up grading scales. So this only needs to be done if you are teaching a certain class. If you have an honors class or a CCP class that goes by the college grading scale versus the district grading scale, this is where you are going to set this up. Any of my elementary that has standards-based report cards, I change the grading scale based on a utility that is run for the district so that those teachers can grade towards standards. But this would be more for my middle school or high school if they are using a different grading scale than the default grading scale. So I could click on Set Up Grading Scales. And if I had a CCP class, so it's going to be a different grading scale than my default classes, I would click on Custom Setup 2. So you'll notice it says for secondary style report cards, and then this allows you to change the grading scale for the class or for an individual. So maybe if you have one student in your class that is taking it for pass fail and everybody else is taking it with the normal default scale, you would still change it to custom setup 1 and then just change that one student to pass fail. Once I click on save, you'll notice that I have additional tabs at the top. So I can go into my grading scales and then I can pick what the default grading scale is going to be. So for example, if it was for a CCP class, then I can say, okay, well, instead of using the default, I am now going to go to the CCP, click on that, and then hit save. If everybody is staying on the default scale, but I have one student that is going to have a pass fail. So I'm going to click on the student and then I would choose the pass fail, whatever the pass scale might be. And then I would save it for just that one student. Okay. And if you have multiple classes, say you have two CCP classes throughout the day, they're using the same scale, you can copy to additional classes. And again, that doesn't affect everybody. That would be only if you are using a different grading scale for some reason. Next is looking at our seating charts. So again, this is set up at the beginning of the year, can be altered throughout the year as you're moving kids around. But if I click on my seating chart, okay, by default, nothing is there. It does not copy over anything from the previous year. So I want to add a new chart, or I can click on the plus, either one. So once I click on add, I'm going to name my seating chart. Maybe this is, okay. Print comments would be when you print this out. If there is anything extra, so if this is for your sub plans, if there's is something in there that you want the sub to see, you can say put that in the print comments. So when you print it out, it will print on the seating chart. Depending on if your school has a color printer or not, or if you're printing this at home, but by default, it's all black and white. But what I would suggest is that you show the student pictures. So these are the pictures that pull over from student information and will populate in the seating chart. Now, of course, right now at the beginning of the school year, these are going to have last year's student pictures. So if you have a new student, their picture is not going to be available until pictures are taken and the new pictures are uploaded into student information, which at that point, then those pictures would update on your seating chart as well. Your your desk comments, that is helpful. So if you want to put anything like should not sit by so and so or has an allergy, any of that information that you want on there, you can include that. And then the name pronunciation, this is an important one for subs because we know some of our students, they have different spellings of their names. So sometimes their names are harder to pronounce. So this is what is put into student information, populates into gradebook, and can be printed on the seating chart. And then taking daily attendance, that is up to you if you would use your seating chart to actually take that attendance. But you can also show the daily attendance on your seating chart. But if you're just using these for your sub plans and you're going to print them out, that one's not necessarily to print out. So once I click on save, now it's going to have me try to arrange my desks. So typically we have columns and rows in our classroom. So it's going to say, okay, well, how many, columns do you have or how many rows do you want for your arrangement? If you have pods or something different because you have a lab or things like that, you can adjust them as needed once you create it. If you are teaching something that the students are not necessarily in their seats all the time, like a phys ed class or music, things like that, you can still create alphabetically, put them in your sub plan because at least it gives a picture and a name for that sub, so that if Johnny's running around the classroom, she has the sub list or he has the sub list and can see those faces to match up who it is. So I'm just going to go by columns. I'm going to say there are 4 columns in my room. And then how do I want these arranged? So you can say A to Z, you can say random order, however you want them filled, and it's going to arrange 15 student desks. So then once I click on arrange, you can see that it's going to populate with their pictures. Okay. And then if I put any see. So if I want to put a comment here for Bruce, I can say, Okay. And then I'm going to hit save. And you'll see this little caption bubble populates. So if I view Bruce, then it's going to populate this. I have the choice when printing that I can print with those comments. Okay. You'll notice here that Micah has withdrawn from my class, so there's the little W on there. So before you do this, you would want to clean up your class lists. Now that my seating chart has been populated, now I can rearrange kids and put them where I need. Maybe my desk is right in the center. Um, can move her out of the way and so forth. If you do get new students throughout the school year, so you get a new student in here, when you add a desk, you have the option to add an empty desk, so like a teacher desk, or you can add a student. So if a student moves in, as soon as they are on your roster in Gradebook, you can then add them into your seating chart. Then you would hit save and it would populate that new student desk. Once you are done, you can hit the lock. It locks it so you can show comments, you can print whatever you need to do from here. If you need to rearrange again, add a student, whatever it might be, you would click on the lock to be able to edit. It opens it back up for you to be able to edit and or rearrange, but it will not let you print from here until you actually lock it. So once I go back out to my dashboard, I go back into my seating chart, you'll see that it'll populate. And if I have multiples, I would have the drop down to be able to view all of my seating charts. So let's look at the dashboard for this. So as we are looking at this, we notice that we have the W for Micah. So she is withdrawn from this class. You are going to see this a lot, probably throughout the first week of school as students are changing their schedules around. Maybe they're leaving one class period, going to another class period based on another course that they have to take and when that's offered. So if you see the W's in your class, before you try to print out your seating charts, any of your rosters, things like that, you're going to want to hide them. So I'm going to click where it says Update Roster. Once I click on that, I can see the W here. I can click on Hide and then hit Save, and you can see that Micah will be hidden from my class roster. So now if I go back into my seating chart or um, any of my class roster or homeroom roster, wherever I've removed that student is now gone. Okay, as we are looking, don't forget you have access to information on each of your students. If I click on my student's name, that is going to take me into their profile. So inside their profile, you're going to see some information. Depending on what the school has, you might see a locker number. You might see their name pronunciation. So if you're not sure how to pronounce their name, you might see a preferred name that will also display on the dashboard in parentheses. So for example, we have some students that go by their middle names. So if Michael John actually goes by John, his preferred name would populate as John, as long as the building secretaries have put that in their profile and student information. You can also see when a parent has logged into the Parent Access website. So if you're prepping for parent-teacher conferences, you can see if a parent has logged in recently, if it's been a while. They might not be aware of the grade that the student is getting. Maybe they they forgot their passwords, they haven't been able to get in. So this gives you the last login that the parent has had on Parent Access. So some other things are parent contacts. So the primary contact is going to be listed here, as well as on the contacts page. That's going to list any anybody that is in the student's profile. If your district is using Final Forms, any of the contacts that were put into Final Forms would be listed here on the Contacts tab in Gradebook. I can also look at the student's schedule. So especially those incoming freshmen or just coming into the middle school, those students get nervous. They might not know where to go. You can come here and look at their schedule and see where they're going each period. This is also nice. If you have a student that you're concerned about, maybe they're not doing well in your class, maybe they're not turning in homework, you want to see what they're doing in another class, this view progress will take you and allow you to see, and I don't know exactly what's in here, so we'll see. Um, this will allow you to see the other courses that the student is taking and what their current grade is. So again, it could be helpful, if you have that struggling student, maybe you have a student on an IEP, maybe you're an intervention specialist working with, certain students, you can see all of their classes right here from this page. This is going to be um, the current grade from the teacher's grade book versus going into the report card grade where it is going to show you only the report card grades, same as what is on the assessment tab. Sorry, the demo database does take a while, so I'm clicking faster than it's keeping up with me. The progress tab is what you would have in your class. So that is each of your assignments and what the student's overall grade is. But again, report cards will show you the report cards. The assessment's going to show you the report card grades. Your schedule and your progress will show the individual student progress. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. We'll look at our daily comments. So when we're looking at our student, whether I'm here, if I'm working in the gradebook grid, each of these places allows me to add a daily comment for the student. So yes, it could be time consuming if you're wanting to add for each of the students, but um, it is very helpful when you are trying to communicate with parents. So if, Joya is one of my struggling students and I want to communicate with parents through parent access, I can add daily comments. So I can say, okay. Now, as long as I check this right here where it says publish to the web and I hit check, click on my update, you will now see when I refresh my page, you will see that the little pencil paper is filled in. So this says that there's a comment for today. So if I want to view those comments, if I go to my View Parent Access website, I can view for any student. So this is what the parent and or the student is seeing on their end. Give it a second, a long second. You'll see up here, they're populated. Up here, I can pick any of the students for my class. So if I wanted to see a different student, I'm going to leave it on Joya because that's the one I just added the comment. So you're thinking, well, I don't see any of those comments. Well, if you go to the home screen, it will populate at the top. So whether it's just yours or you will see if there's any from any other courses. If I go into my course for American Literature and I look at my grades, of course, the parents coming here to look at grades, but if you see down at the bottom, it's going to keep a running record of all those daily comments. So again, if you want to communicate with parents, keep them up to date with maybe one of your struggling students, you can communicate with them through those daily comments and it will populate here. Okay. The other thing to be aware of and is the ability to add those comments in your assignments. So make sure you're using those. Those go with the individual assignment where the daily comments is a standalone. It stays by itself. And again, if a parent misses the comment today, they will always be with the course. So they will stay in there. They do not just disappear. Okay, a feature that a lot of us miss, we know how to add our assignments. So if we add an assignment, we can add it with an assignment type, give it the due date. Remember, the due date is the one that's going to reflect what reporting period that it should be placed in, whether it's first or second or exam. You're going to post marks to the web. So that's so parents can see what the assignment is. But what a lot of teachers don't um, use is this feature called import an assignment. So there's two ways that you can use this. One, if you're going to be using the same assignment this year as you did last year, you can bring in all those details. What I like about this is even if I'm not going to use the same exact title for my assignment, I can come here and kind of get a glimpse of what I was teaching and when. So you can see a quiz, what it was called, and when it was taught. So this was the due date last year. So if I go through here, maybe I am working on Romeo and Juliet. So and today is August 14th. And you're like, ooh, yes, we started that on the 19th last year. So we're right on schedule. So again, it just gives you an overview of all of your assignments that you have used over the course of the previous year. Now, if there's something that you want to use, so maybe I want to re-import something because I'm going to use it, and we're going to take this to test. I'm just going to click on the little download. It will populate it, and then I can update the date of when it is going to be. So we're going to say it's the 15th. I'm going to post those marks to the web and hit save. Now, if we look at my dashboard, here's the 15th right here. Here's my um, quiz is that the one I just added? Um, I don't remember which one I just added. Um, so pay attention to that. Pay attention to what the name was because you can always import the name. But it will populate here. And then when you are ready to give the point value, come here to this screen. And don't forget, if it is something like a homework assignment or something that the kids are just going to get completion points for. So, if they completed this and a majority of them are getting 10 points, um, mark your oddball ones first and then you can fill. Now, of course, this was a quiz. This probably wouldn't work in this case because everybody's score would be individual. But say, for example, this is a homework assignment out of 20 points, and almost everybody got 20 points except for maybe two kids. Maybe this student got an 18 and this student missed half of it, so they only got a 10. Everybody else got a 20. So I can come here, right click, and say fill. And notice it does not override those few that I added first. Okay. That works with your comments as well as your excluding. If you're working in the grid, it will also work in the grid here. So I would do my few. So maybe this kid has a 9 and an 8 and everybody else has a 10. And when I fill, it will fill down. Okay, so just a quick little feature to help you enter those grades. Okay, a few features that I want to discuss that we don't use all the time, but they are available. So one is called transfer student marks. This is sometimes useful at the beginning of the school year or at semester time. So if you have a student moving from one section of your class to another. So first off, your student cannot be hidden in the old class. So if they're moving from first period to third period, that student has to be visible in the student list with that W. Then you would come to transfer student marks. It's kind of backwards to me, but where is the student going to? And I can't do this in the demo base, it doesn't let me. Where is the student going to? So I would pick what class the student is going to, who the student is. So if it's Igor here, and then where is he coming from? So then if it's a different section, it should list American literature and whatever section he was coming from. If you have multiple teachers teaching the same subject, such as algebra, and they're coming from a different class, you can pull from the other class. When you are bringing in the information, and we'll see if it does anything for us. You can pull by quarter or you can pull by dates. So if, school started on August 1st and they are now coming into your class, they had assignments through the 11th with this teacher, I can check my compatibility. So there's a couple options that it will transfer. Okay. So if you're coming from a different teacher, this is usually the case. The classes don't share the same assignment types. So if you are a district where they require you to have specific assignment types, such as formative and summative, then it might be compatible. So it's going to say, okay, well, this student is not compatible with transferring marks. Sometimes what it'll ask you is if over here, your options, if you want to transfer it as one grade. So what it'll do is create an assignment and it'll say transfer mark, and then it will populate that grade for that student at that point in time as just the total number of points that they had in the previous. If your assignment types and the assignments match, it will allow you to transfer those if you're transferring between yourself, not between two other teachers. And then if things are not compatible, it will allow you to view the progress report so you can see what the grade is, and you would just manually have to put in an assignment and exclude all the other students from that. Okay. But it will exclude all the other students depending on the options that it provides. The other one that I want to show you is excluding lowest marks. So this allows you to exclude based on your assignment types. So within this class, I might want to exclude my lowest test grade. So I might just say, okay, I want to exclude the lowest test or quiz. So we'll select those. I'm going to click on next, and you will see that if it excludes it, it's going to bring the grade up, or if it excludes it, it might bring the grade down, and so it will not exclude it. And if you're okay with that, then you would say exclude, and it excludes what needs to be excluded and what doesn't. So it will do all the work for you. Again, you can pick by the assignment type. So if you're just going to say, hey, whatever the lowest assignment was, we'll exclude it. I don't care if it is a test or if it's a homework assignment, we'll exclude the lowest grade. So you can have them all selected. So I talked about several different things that we don't use very often, such as these two. So if you're ever wondering throughout the school year, you're like, oh, what did she say about that? This little question mark up at the top is your learning center. So if I click on the question mark, it will take me into my learning center. If I am in something such as exclude marks and I click on the learning center, it is going to take me to resources based on that topic. So you can see exclude lowest marks was brought up. If you are just looking for something, you want to see how to transfer student marks or share gradebook. You can see as soon as I start typing in the search, it's going to populate, and I can click on that for the way to share my gradebook access. Okay, so again, the Learning Center is helpful. It is oriented based on where you are at in your grade book, but if there is something else that you would like to look for, there is the search in the top right, so you can search for any topic within the gradebook teacher. You can search for other things, but some of them might not apply to you and might not have access to them. Okay, I am going to stop there. There hasn't been any communication in the chat, but I want to open this up and to see if you guys have any questions or anything that I didn't cover that you are interested in looking at. So lesson plans, depending on your school, you could use lesson plans here. So your principals can also pick out the lesson plans if they want to view them, print them out, things like that. Uh, my suggestion is if you do use the lesson plan feature, you create a template first. So you can create a template here. Um, I don't know if there's any templates in the database, but you would create your template name. If you have a table that's 5 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, have that set and saved, and then you can pull in the templates here. These would be notes to yourself that nobody else can see, but any of your principals or school admin access can view what is in the lesson plan area. It will store your lesson plans year after year if you want to go back to them. You can also add standards to them. So again, depending on what your district requires, if you have to write lesson plans with standards attached to them, all of that information is here for you. So it can be helpful. Um, and then you can also schedule your lesson plans. So if you schedule the lesson plan, you're going to see the 5-day planner, you're going to see what's up and coming and so forth. And you can see over here, it looks like one is already scheduled in the demo database. So this is scheduled for, it was last week, but it was here. It could be edited and printed and so forth. So let's look here if we see if I can view that one. So you can see they have the activity that they're working on, all of the information, and then here are all the standards that are attached to that a lesson plan. Okay. Okay, the class info page. So the class info page, think of this as like a mini website within Parent Access. So some of you have your websites on the school um, through the school webpage. The class info is information that you would want to get to your students or parents, but remember it is password protected, so the parent would have to be logged in to Parent Access in order to see it. So if I click on the class information page, I can customize this however I want. Okay, so this would be the information that would be on there. You can include links. So if you have several links that you use all the time that the students would use, again, they would have to be in Parent Access, but our students now with Chromebooks and a lot of our districts have Google OAuth turned on, which means they sign into um, Parent Access with just clicking sign in with Google. And then you can also have attachments. So if you have PDFs, you might have like your course syllabus, things like that. You can have those attached. So then what does it look like? If we go to our Parents Access page, we have our class information page. Give it a second to catch up. And you can see here, this one is in green because I have updated information on that class information page. So once I click on it, you're going to see that was the information in the center. And then those links okay, are over here, which they call them links, but then they put them as resources. But that was your links tab. And then your documents here would be any of those attachments. Okay. Okay, next for show due date attendance. Does this use period attendance or daily? It uses daily attendance. So it will only if the student is away from the school for the day, it is going to have that information. If they just missed your class that day, it will not show that. Good question. Anything else? And I do like the feature of the class info page, but because so many districts have their individual web pages and allow teachers to have, a page from that, a lot of teachers don't use this part of it, even though it is a nice feature. And if there are no more questions, thank you. And hopefully, you guys all have a great school year. And as always, if you're struggling or have any issues with Gradebook, never hesitate to reach out to me, or you can put in a support ticket if there's a problem. And that's just support@tccsa.net. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.